Time to go back to the streets. Again. You see, a year ago on the Brotherhood we started this series that you might have heard of called Super Nintendo vs. Sega Genesis, where we would take two games that were very similar on each console and compare them to see which one was ultimately better. And our first episodes were none other than Streets of Rage and Final Fight, and our second episode, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
And now, via special request from this YouTube user right here, we've been asked to compare two games from those reviews. Those games are, representing the Sega Genesis, Streets of Rage 2, and representing the Super Nintendo, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time.
Oh man, this is going to be a little hard. We've lost count of all the hours we've spent playing both of these games. The beat-em-up genre is one of our favorites. It's simple, challenging, and even more fun when you bring a friend along. And the genre, it's still going strong today with games like Dragon's Crown.
Now, comparing these two games is going to be very challenging in itself because they both do what they do very well. And we kind of already gave a general overview of their best features anyway. So this time, we're going to be comparing their special elements piece by piece.
First, the actual fighting itself. When we're playing these two games, the first thing that jumped out at us was the difference in speed. Turtles in Time has gameplay that is faster, enhanced by the quick dash you execute shortly after you start moving. This allows the game to move more at an up-tempo speed. Streets of Rage 2, on the other hand, has more of a methodical pace to it, as you move forward with a steady walk. So instead of zipping through the stage, you are instead taking your time. This gives you more time to anticipate what is around the corner. As for the combat itself, both games offer a fairly large set of attacks that you can execute.
For Turtles in Time, you have your standard attack. After you connect with the first two attacks in a row, you can execute a bigger third one that can knock your enemy back. With the jump button, you can actually perform several different types of jump attacks. There is a standard quick diagonal dropkick, but if by pressing jump and attack immediately after each other, you can perform a slow forward flying kick. When you jump and hit attack slightly before you hit the ground, you will do a fast flying kick that can go across the entire screen.
By pressing jump and attack together, you will perform a super attack that will cause great damage to your opponent, but it will also cause you to lose some life as well. While running, you can perform a slide attack or a running shoulder block, which is an attack you'll be using quite a bit. Another nice feature is a back attack that can be performed when an enemy is from behind. The most impressive maneuver you have, though, are the throws. Depending on the stages that you're on, you'll be able to perform a repeating slams or toss toward the screen, which gives the illusion of 3D.
Streets of Rage 2 is no slouch in this area as well. Characters have a standard punch and kick, but by pressing forward twice and attack, you can execute a more powerful one that can get you out of tight situations, such as the bare knuckle. The A button is the special attack, but you can also perform a second one as well by pressing forward and A. Like Ninja Turtles though, if these attacks connect, you do deal damage to yourself. The throws are also fun assaults to be used as well. You have a standard one from the front of your opponent and one that can be executed from the back as well. And for an additional bonus, if you press attack and jump at the same time, you'll do a backhand, in which case if you see an enemy sneaking up on you, you can give them the big F off.
A nice defensive maneuver at your disposal is that if you get thrown, by pressing up and jump before you hit the ground, you can do a recovery that will have you land on your feet. One additional feature this game has is the ability to pick up weapons that you can find after destroying trash cans or knocking them out of the hands of incoming enemies. You'll be able to use the weapon until it gets knocked out of your hands, but you can pick it up if you move quickly enough. Just be careful. You pick up the weapon by pressing attack while standing over it. However, you also press attack to use it. The reason this can be a problem is that if you have a weapon in your hand and you try to swing it, if you are standing over an item that is on the ground, your character will instead pick it up. That can become slightly annoying.
The turtles each perform slightly differently. For example, Raphael has the smallest reach, but he is the fastest turtle, while Donnie has a longer reach but is the slower of the bunch. In Streets of Rage 2, Axel is a standard character. Blaze is slightly quicker, but weaker in return. Max is slower, but as a wrestler, he has some very unique moves and is the strongest. And Skate, well, he's Skate. So both games do have a really good variety in their moveset. Though it does seem that Streets of Rage 2 has slightly more with its more diverse characters.
The enemy roster also slightly favors Streets of Rage 2 as well. While Turtles in Time does feature a great deal of foot soldiers who can do different things, such as throw kunai, wield swords, and so forth, Streets has a different assortment of enemies, like enemies who can do slide kicks, flipping ninjas, and of course, Mistress Mandy. The final bosses are also a little harder to deal with as well. While the bosses in Turtles can be attacked in generally the same way, the bosses in Street require some different strategy, like the Rocketeer for instance. And if you're not careful, they can drain your health very fast.
For sound effects, Streets of Rage 2 just feels heavier and more impactful. TMNT sounds okay, but some of the sounds do come off a little goofy, especially when you connect with a boss fight. As for music, that is a very hard one to gauge. Both soundtracks are so memorable, you really can't go wrong with either one. The Ninja Turtles do have a slightly more variety in their level designs, basically such as riding on rollerboards. You know, the graphics are pretty much a toss-up too. Both are very colorful and they both demonstrate their respective consoles' abilities very well. The story mode for these two entries are not all that important. They're both pretty standard. While neither of them are all the creative in the story department, they both get the job done, which is getting your crew on the move to stop the big bads. Oh, wait a minute. Bads isn't a word? Huh. Well, it should be.
Then there's two-player mode, and the big difference here is that in Streets you can hit each other, which can really become a drag. So make sure to stay on either side of the screen, but sometimes that doesn't even help, especially if your partner accidentally tosses an enemy at you. Well, at least you can perform team attacks, so that helps. A little, I guess. Each game has a duel mode for some one-on-one competition, and Turtles also has a trial mode. The option menus allow you to input level difficulty and the number of lives you wish to use. Also, one funny little extra. We discovered that both games actually make references to the movie Alien.
Well, there you guys have it. Streets of Rage 2 and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. Both of them are really great games and we love them to death, and ultimately they're so different that it was just too hard to choose. But if it came down to it and we were on a desert island stranded out there in the middle of nowhere, the game that we would end up choosing is Tales of Eternia. I'm sorry, there's no comparison.
That's true. Well, thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this comparison. If you have any other suggestions, please leave it below in the comments. We'll see you next time on the next episode of Sega Genesis vs. Super Nintendo, and if you would like to know what it will be about, well, we'll give you a little hint. Until next time.